Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. We have got a lot to talk about today, but first things first. I hope you'll join me on AM 950 Radio. You can also stream us on am950radio.com. But meet my morning stars, the Santita Jackson Morning Stars, on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. The Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. You can see all of my old shows on that show archived. Bernie Sanders, Reverend Jesse Jackson. I think I've heard of him. And a whole lot of great people. Ro Khanna. We've had Congressman Jonathan Jackson, Congresswoman Maxine Waters. We've had a lot of people who've weighed in on the great issues of the day. And we do hope that you will join us there, the Santita Jackson Show on YouTube. And if you want to be my friend on Facebook, for all of you who like nostalgia, go to the Santita Jackson and Friends page. No other page. The Santita Jackson and Friends page. That's where I can accept friends. And on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Santita J, and the Santita J Show, but meet me at Santita J. Go on and become my friend over there too. And if you come over to my YouTube channel, like and subscribe, and then click the bell so that you can be notified whenever we come up and talk about anything live. So let's get right to it. In the second hour, we're going to be talking about so much. The latest in the Fani Willis Trump cases in Georgia. What's going to happen? What's going to happen there? One of our regulars is now actually running against Judge McAfee, Robert Patillo. We're going to be talking about those cases because indeed Judge McAfee just threw out several cases in the Trump case and in the Trump, several of the Trump charges. And so it's looking a little brighter for former President Trump, and he is expected to let us know if he's going to let Fani Willis stay on the case or not by Friday. Going to talk about that. And yesterday, or today, well, Tuesday night, they locked up the presidential nominations for both of the major parties, for former President Trump, for President Biden. What does that mean? Now it seems that Democratic operatives are telling President Biden that he needs to go after the third-party candidates. Is that wise? So let's talk about that. Excuse me, there's so much to explore in the second hour, but now, how many of you are on TikTok? Got to talk about that. You might not be able to get it in the United States, or it might come in another iteration. But first, what's been in the headlines? Haiti. If you look at Haiti as an outsider, you would just think that these people, having led this revolution on France, one of the great imperial Western European powers, they defeated them. Indeed, they really started the anti-slavery movement in this hemisphere. They did so much to help America get on her feet. But what's happening with them? Why is it that they are bedeviled by crisis after crisis? And many people are wondering, can these people govern themselves? Indeed, Eric Prince said, look, we just need to go throughout Latin America and the global South and to overtake these countries because they don't know what they're doing. It's not as simple as that, everybody. Indeed, there's a lot of foreign interference, a lot of foreign intervention in the global South because that is where much of the world's wealth is resting. The oil, the gold, the bauxite, everything. But there's something about Haiti. And we need to talk about it. And one of the world's foremost experts on this particular issue is a man who's written a book, Aid State, Elite Panic, Disaster Capitalism, and the Battle to Control Haiti. Who wants to control Haiti? Why does anyone want to control Haiti? What is there up in them hills? Jake Johnston, a research associate at the Center for Economic and Policy Research. I'm so glad that you are with me today. I'm such, hate to say fan of your work, but I really, your work is very engaging. It's one thing whenever you see economic and policy, I go back to college and go, oh, my teeth start to chatter and I begin to shake. But, when people make these issues accessible, it's a wonderful thing. And that's why I would strongly recommend people's books, particularly if you want to understand what's going on in Haiti? I mean, this freedom loving, courageous people. What is going on?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. And I loved how you started this show because I think to understand Haiti today, you have to understand that broader context. You have to understand what Haiti has meant to the world and its history, right? And how important that has been, not just for the Haitian people, but for the entire world. And so I think that is the case that the world owes Haiti a debt. The world owes Haiti its attention. And most importantly, the world owes Haiti change. And this gets into, I think, what you were talking about too, which is that it's easy to look at Haiti and say this is a failed state, right? This is a nation that can't govern itself. But doing so means ignoring, right, 2 centuries of foreign interference and foreign intervention that have directly implicated and are directly implicated in the current crisis, right? And of course, it's not to say that every decision in Haiti is only the made by outsiders, right? It takes local participants, it takes local players, right? So it's the connection of the generally the elite and the well-to-do in Haiti with the U.S. foreign policy establishment and commercial interests here that have controlled and tried to manage Haiti, really going back to its founding 2 centuries ago.
Indeed, you do have the elite in Haiti who it seems work on behalf of the elites in the West, in the United States, in Europe, particularly in France. Am I misreading that?
Well, I think on behalf of, but I think it goes deeper than that. I mean, right, Haiti is also a place that is stratified along race and class lines itself, right? The economic elite of Haiti perhaps see themselves more as part of that Western elite than part of Haiti itself,
Mhm.
right? So there are a lot of dynamics here, and it's built up over, as you say, many centuries.
Well, what about the resignation of the presidency? We just had the previous president who was assassinated, and we're still trying to figure out what happened there. Where is his wife? There's so much, but let's start with the resignation of President Henri.
Yeah, so Henri came into power following the assassination of Jovenel Moise in July
Mhm.
2021. And he had been named prime minister, but had not yet taken office. There was no parliament, so this was not a legitimate or democratic process. This was a decree from the former president naming him. And in the power struggle that ensued following that assassination, foreign diplomats backed Henri as the one to form a government. And they put out a press release urging him to do so. And within days, indeed, he was leading a new government in Haiti. And I think to understand his resignation, we have to understand how he came to power, which again was through the support of the international community. In a lot of ways, this reflects broader dynamics and broader trends we've seen in Haiti, with the political class looking external for their legitimacy, for that support. And it has been that foreign support for Henri over the last 30 plus months as he has governed Haiti with not a single elected official in office, right? All the power has been consolidated under this one individual. And yet the situation got worse and worse and worse. And those international actors backed Henri while everyone in Haiti was saying, we need a broader political agreement. We need a real negotiation. We need some way to check this power. And eventually it started, we need this guy to resign, right? It got worse and worse and worse. But that policy was consistent and it pushed Haiti all the way to where it is today. And so now Henri has been forced to resign. Armed groups have shut the airport and that's stopped all traveling out of the country. Henri was on a foreign trip and physically could not return to the country. And while in that environment, those international actors who put him in office pulled their support and told him to resign. And so we have to understand these dynamics of what actually led to his resignation.
Well, he physically could not return to the country. Why? Who told him not to return? Who prevented the president from returning home?
Well, this is a good question. So there have been a coalition of armed groups that have joined together in the capital with the ostensible aim of ousting Henri. And that is not an unpopular take. Right? Henri had become extraordinarily unpopular in Haiti, and not many wanted to see him come back. But the closing of the international airport and all of Haiti's airports meant it was impossible to actually fly back to Haiti. And about 10 days ago, Henri came up with a plan to charter a plane from New Jersey, fly to the Dominican Republic, and then take apparently a helicopter across the border somewhere back into Haiti. And while he was in the air, two things happened. One, he claims that the US reached out and told him to resign. Two, the Dominican Republic pulled the authorization for his plane to land. And so you can see this on flight tracking websites. The plane just starts circling in the air and then lands in Puerto Rico. And he has been in Puerto Rico ever since for the last 10 days. And until he released a brief statement the other evening announcing his intention to resign upon the installation of a new government, that was the first time he had been heard from in 10 plus days.
So he's been functioning under the protection and with the grace and blessing of the U.S. government. Am I right?
Until 10 days ago.
What changed?
This is a great question. I think it's what a lot of people are asking now. I think clearly the situation on the ground changed, right? Henri was seen as somebody, not necessarily who the US was enamored with, but certainly the person the US had chosen to oversee this sort of transition back to democracy in Haiti. Because again, there are no elected officials. There haven't been elections in 7 years. So the governance structure of Haiti has been operating outside of the Constitution for some time. They saw Henri as protecting their interests and moving forward this process. But over the last 2 weeks, it has become abundantly clear that he simply would be unable to do so. And I say abundantly clear to the United States. It was abundantly clear to just about everybody in Haiti a year ago, 2 years ago, since he's taken office, that doing this alone was simply not going to work.
What is America's role in all of this? I mean, we saw the earthquakes many years ago now, and the island was swarmed with not just American diplomats, but the American government. And of course, you remember when the French president landed, he was booed and had to leave the country. But then you saw the Clintons come in with their foundation, and you saw Bono come in, and you saw all of these people. And what is America's role? And what I'm always looking to follow the money, Jake Johnston. Yeah. What are the financial interests? Who needs to control Haiti? I mean, I'm getting that from your book. It just seems like there is a battle to control Haiti. What are they trying to control? What is there?
And I think sadly, there's not one answer, and it's not a simple story, because I think what you really see are multiple disparate interests and motivations of various actors with a role here and taken together, it produces this result, right? That it doesn't necessarily take one top-down goal or plan, right? There are a lot of reasons that this happens. One is foreign assistance and the foreign aid that we give. So why doesn't that actually build local capacity? Why doesn't that strengthen governments? Well, because foreign assistance is as much a domestic jobs program as it is about development in a country like Haiti. That's a system we've built. We do it because we're creating jobs here. It's US companies, US organizations that receive the lion's share of assistance. And then they're the ones giving it to people on the ground. We built that system for our own benefit, right? It could change, but there are obviously entrenched interests. You have the Haitian elite, who are often the sounding board and source base for foreign diplomats. And of course, they have their own interests. They've got a monopoly on key industries. They control big sectors of the economy. For them, democracy is not the answer. It's the protection of their interests. And so our policy from the US perspective and other countries in the world, I mean, we talk about the international community in Haiti, and almost every country in the world has a hand in this. But there's one country that's really setting the policy, and that's the United States. Right? So there are a lot of different interests, all of them conspiring to sort of produce this outcome. And the sad reality is the players that are not empowered in that dynamic are obviously the Haitian people themselves.
It seems like there are a lot of converging and diverging interests, but the people who are getting left behind are not the elites, but the basic people, just the average Haitian. And so much so, I think that Daniel Foote, the former U.S. envoy to Haiti, resigned I, I think in disappointment and disgust. Can you explain who Daniel Foote is and why he resigned?
Yeah, of course. So Daniel Foote was the United States Special Envoy to Haiti, and he was appointed shortly after the assassination in 2021. Part of that was because the U.S. ambassador in country at the time had been appointed by Trump and was seen in Haiti as far too close to the former president Moise, as sort of part of the problem and unable to reach out across Haitian society and bring new players into the political fold. And so to balance that out, there was an effort to add a special envoy in the form of Mr. Foote, who had been in Haiti before. After the earthquake, he spent a brief time there. So he had some background there. And he resigned in September of 2021, so not long after getting the post. And I would encourage people to look up and read his resignation letter. It is shocking. It's not shocking in its analysis, which is largely in line with what Haitian scholars and activists have been
Mhm.
saying for decades. But to hear it coming from a US diplomat, right, is shocking. And so in September 2020, in 2021, if you recall, this was the Del Rio, right, the
Mhm.
border issue with you know men on horse, agents on horseback, seemingly whipping Haitians trying to get into the country, right? The images that went viral and sort of shocked our country. And that began a period where the Biden administration deported to Haiti, forcibly expelled to Haiti, thousands and thousands of Haitians into an extremely volatile and difficult situation on the ground. And so he resigned in protest of that inhumane policy, and also what he called, what he referred to sort of as the repeated choice of the US to meddle in Haitian political affairs, right? That the root of these problems was that what Haitian people wanted was a chance to actually choose their own leaders, a chance to actually have a say in the future of their country. And yet the United States would continually put their thumb on the political scales. And he specifically talked about US support for Henri as another and latest example of this, and an example of the United States inability to change course in Haiti. And he wasn't the only one making that case at the time, but certainly his comments have uh, proven prophetic.
Well, when we look at that, I mean, I remember what we did with our steed. Now it has come out years later, something that many people who've had a lot of experience, um, really on the side of the people of Haiti who want liberation, who want control of their country. Uh, the CIA was in the middle of that coup, um, and it seems that we're in the middle of the mischief uh, that really keeps Haiti from thriving. Not just, I mean, and of course the elites are part of that problem there too, because they are aligned with the West. And it seems that whenever you get a leader from the people, they're assassinated, they're exiled. I mean, what are the answers for Haiti? Or what is the answer for Haiti? How can these people ever get out from underneath the boot of oppression, particularly oppression of the West, whether it's Western powers themselves or their proxies through the elites?
Yeah, these are not easy questions to answer. First, I will always have faith in the Haitian people. I mean, they have
Mhm.
surprised and shocked the world in the past, and I would not be surprised or shocked if they do it again in the future. Right?
Mhm.
Things can change in an instant, and the capacity for resistance and survival, and it will continue. Right? That fight will forever be fought, forever be waged. And I think, from the perspective of me as somebody outside Haiti, right? What role can we outside of Haiti play in supporting the Haitian people trying to pick their own leaders, to choose their own leaders, to actually have the space to do that? How can we help get the boot off the neck, right?
Mhm.
And I think, again, that comes down to changing US policy and changing these institutions and structures that we've set up that dominate how we interact with Haiti. Again, it's easy to look at Haiti and say, "Oh, there's corruption, so of course we can't deal with local organizations," or "Oh, there's this," or "There's a lack of capacity." But if we don't understand the role we've played in creating that dynamic and how a change in our policies could ultimately create that space, right? If we are preventing it, then we can change and create that space for Haitians to take advantage of it, right? For Haitians to have the space to organize and to build and to do that. But it's not going to take change in Haiti as much as it's going to take change here in the United States and in other foreign powers that have been far too willing and capable of interfering and putting their thumbs on the scales over and over and over again.
Well, what is CARICOM? Because I'm very interested. I thought you wrote a really fascinating piece in which you talked about President Henri and just what is happening there right now. What is CARICOM and what is the role that they can play? What is the role they will play? What is the role that they could possibly play? Uh, I guess so that we can see justice for the Haitian people.
Yeah, well, I think again, we can look outside of direct intervention into Haiti's affairs as a solution for other ways that they can play an important role, right? So there are regional issues. Arms trafficking is a huge issue, right?
Mm.
Uh, this is something that affects countries throughout the region. There's, for example, Mexico has a multi-billion-dollar lawsuit against U.S. gun manufacturers for illegal weapons coming into Mexico. These efforts can be really important because all of the guns in Haiti, he doesn't produce guns. They're all coming from the United States. Okay,
Yeah.
we could do a lot more to stop that dynamic. And so, you mentioned CARICOM, and so just to give a brief background, CARICOM is the Caribbean Community of Nations. So this is a political bloc organization that brings together all of the Caribbean countries together. And the reason why CARICOM has been in the news is because the political negotiations that have taken place to come up with a new governance structure to replace Henri have been held under the direct auspices of CARICOM. And the meeting, which also involved the United States, France, Canada, Brazil, and Mexico to come up with this new governance structure, took place over the weekend and into this week and is continuing in some regards in Kingston, Jamaica. And so Caribbean countries are playing a leading role right now in some of these things. There's also been a long history here, and we can see the U.S. doing this again. The U.S. would prefer not to be directly involving itself in Haiti, in the sense that they'd like to have somebody else be the face of their intervention. And we saw this after the coup in 2004, where yes, U.S. troops showed up on the ground first, but within a few months, they were gone and they were replaced by UN peacekeeping troops, right? And they stayed for 13 years, 10,000 of them. And this was largely led by countries in the Southern Hemisphere. Brazil was the lead country in this. And that was a huge diplomatic win for the United States, trying to avoid this perception of continued U.S. intervention, that they've managed to outsource that intervention. And we're seeing a very, very similar dynamic now, right? With the choices of Kenya to lead this proposed security intervention into Haiti and CARICOM to lead the political negotiations. But of course, we understand and we can see ourselves, that the United States is continuing to play a lead role behind the scenes of all of these activities.
Well, what is the final word? What should we be looking out for? Because it seems like now there is no peace. It seems that there is nothing but destruction that we see before us in Haiti.
It's what we see, but I promise you it's not the only thing that's happening in Haiti.
Okay.
There is amazing organizing happening all over the country every day, with communities coming together, trying to come up with plans, trying to come up with a better future and the answers to these big questions that we're talking about here. And so from those outside of Haiti, those who might want to call their representatives or push their government or do anything of that nature, we need to let Haitians chart their own future. At the core, that is what this needs to happen. That's what needs to happen. And we can help that. It's not to say that we can make those decisions. That's exactly the wrong approach. But there are changes that we can make to US policy, to Canadian policy, to French policy, to the EU policy, to the UN policy that can help Haitians chart their own future. And that's the only thing that's going to lead to a sustainable solution in the long run.
Well, I guess we would have to abandon yet imperial mindset as well. Yes.
Well, we're going to have to defeat it, at least temporarily.
Well, it takes a long time, but we cannot continue to believe, because Eric Prince's remarks just a few weeks ago are very disturbing, in which he said, "Look, put the imperial hat back on. These people cannot govern themselves, and you assert that that is not true. These people can govern themselves. They need to be left alone to do it. But we just don't do that. And so we will be watching, and of course, we will be reading you, Jake Johnston. Thank you for all of the magnificent work that you do, the wonderful research that you do. And keep on writing and keep on visiting us here on the Santita Jackson Show. Sending you so much love and all of our regards.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Everybody, I am Santita Jackson, AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Stay right here. We are talking about another one of the big stories of the day, TikTok. I must tell you, I'm just kind of getting into it. Although I must say, I am a fan. Now I'm a fan. I get a lot of cooking tips. I find out about politics. I mean, in a minute, it gives you a real snapshot. Beauty tips, but really from soup to nuts, it has become a phenomenon, and maybe half of Americans use it. And certainly I've seen the upside of it, but some people are saying that, well, it really can have a negative impact upon our youth. And then others are saying, well, maybe this is a remnant of the Cold War, because it seems that the power structure doesn't mind TikTok existing. They just want an American to own it. I don't know. It's a little bit complex for me. So I said, I believe in getting people who are much brighter than Santita to look into these issues. And so Ari Paul is here. In fact, I've been reading his works in The Nation and The Guardian. Of course, I reached out to Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting to find out from this brilliant investigative reporter what is going on with TikTok. Am I going to wake up tomorrow and find it disabled? Ari Paul, welcome to the show. What is going on? What did the House vote to do today? Now it's being kicked to the Senate.
Yeah. First of all, thanks for having me. It's a story that's been going on for a number of years now. What happened today was that the House, both Democrats and Republicans, passed a bill that would force the sale of TikTok from its owner, ByteDance, because ByteDance is sort of alleged to be a company that, because by virtue of its Chinese ownership, is therefore an extension of the state of China and its ruling Chinese Communist or the Communist Party of China. But this has sort of been building for a long time. As far back as 2020, there had been this drumbeat coming from then President Trump and a lot of Republicans in Congress and commentators in the press that the problem is that because of TikTok is owned by ultimately the Chinese government, is controlled by the Chinese government, that therefore there's issues of spyware, there's issue of it spreading disinformation or using it as a vehicle, not only to learn, privacy data, collecting the private data of users in the United States, but using it as a vehicle to put forth a sort of a Chinese government narrative. Of course, there's sort of all sorts of problems with this desire to ban TikTok. I mean, I don't have a TikTok account. I rarely look at it. It doesn't really matter whether or not you like to look at it or not. It's sort of if they can ban this, well, what can they ban? It's sort of the slippery slope argument that we have to, if we're going to uphold the First Amendment and the ability to express ourselves freely, we shouldn't, be just banning websites we don't like. But one of the big problems is that all of these concerns that are brought up about TikTok, is it cultivating user privacy? Is misinformation, political misinformation, and false narratives being put forward on it? These are things that are inherent to all social media. These are things that we say about Facebook. There are things that we say about Twitter, which are American-owned. And so it's sort of a red herring to say, well, this is a problem just about TikTok because it happens to be Chinese. It is, I think, really just an extension of this hyper nationalist fervor that views everything that that anything that has Chinese in its name as some sort of threat to our national security, that we're locked in an existential Cold War and a trade battle with China that is just, it goes towards the past of what we were in with the Soviet Union, which was an extremely ugly period of McCarthyism and, blacklists and horrible foreign policy being played out through this thing with TikTok. And if this ultimately goes forward, that fervor could get worse.
Could we revisit this? Because if we look at Facebook, if we look at all of these social media mechanisms, it seems to me they arbitrarily censor, Ari Paul. I mean, I know at the beginning of the Ukraine conflict, for example, Norman Solomon, who is an icon of progressive politics, wrote what for many to me was a perfectly reasonable appeal for peace. He said, look, we don't need to kill anybody. Let's figure out how we can peacefully resolve this and move forward. He was pushed off of Facebook for 2 weeks. Like, who determined that? And who's determining what can and cannot be seen, and particularly in the day of AI, when you don't know who's doing what, Ari Paul? I mean, it's just, you can't call any of this. Why TikTok? I mean, is this because first I'm concerned about censorship, because we found that the whole Russian interference thing that we heard about in 2016, we found out that was false. No one wants to talk about that. And it seems that it's just that we have these arbitrary, ever-changing enemies with whom we can and cannot interact. And what is the problem with TikTok? Do we just want an American company to own it? Is that what we're looking at right now?
There's a couple of things going on. One, it was reported by the Washington Post about this time last year that it is in fact Facebook or Meta, as its its parent company is called, that it was funding a lot of the lobbying with a Republican right-leaning lobbying firm to sully TikTok's name. And why would they be motivated to do this? It's extremely cynical. TikTok is a competitor. TikTok was gaining ground in the United States. Facebook just said, I want to kneecap my competitor the same way Domino's would want to hinder Pizza Hut, so that they're not facing such stringent competition and have keep a monopoly. So they're afraid of TikTok in that sense, and I think they're kicking up a lot of this nonsense, this stuff about privacy and Chinese ownership, just for straight up cynicism about control of the social media market, which of course. It's we sort of come full circle with you mentioned first. Well, who's making these decisions about censorship? I mean, in the days before the mass internet, the FCC had a lot of control about what could be said and what could go on television and radio. And now that we move things online, the idea was, well, the internet is this big free for all. Anyone can jump on. But as there's more and more consolidation of who owns the actual internet via these social media companies and of course the internet providers, well, then they control what can be censored, what can be throttled, what can go up, what can be shadow banned, what can be taken off, what terms of service can be used. So we sort of come full circle from a sort of free for all the liberating nature of the internet to back to where we were. But why TikTok? I mean, part of it is that what I just said, that Facebook sees it as an existential threat to its competition. But the other is that it's just very obvious, listening to members of both parties really who are advocating for this, that this is a part of a kind of witch hunt. And I use that very specifically to we talked about HUAC and McCarthyism in the Cold War against the Soviet Union, of who is lurking in the shadows working for an enemy government. I mean, just a couple of weeks ago, Senator Tom Cotton, a Republican, embarrassed himself when he was talking to the CEO of TikTok, testifying to Congress, and he said, "Have you ever been a member of the Chinese Communist Party?" Well, he kept reminding the senator, "I'm Singaporean." And he kept reiterating, "Have you ever been associated?" Sir, Congressman, I'm Singaporean. And you could sort of write this off as, well, okay, he's just kind of an idiot. Tom Cotton's just kind of an idiot. But there's also we have to wonder, to what degree is this just using TikTok and these endless hearings about TikTok and these bills about TikTok to hammer home this idea that anyone who could be conceived to be Chinese, until they swear that they're not and swear that they, aren't a member of the Chinese Communist Party, is considered a threat. It's a form of xenophobia and a kind of anti-communist fervor that really is extremely poisonous to the discourse, and it's being sort of used through TikTok. Now, will TikTok actually be banned? Chuck Schumer in the Senate is looking very ambivalent about it. I know he's not very happy with this bill, and the Senate is a more conservative, not in a right-wing sense, but conservative in a we don't want to rock the boat type thing when it comes to these types of bills. But we have senators not running for re-election. You have people resigning, people stepping down. We don't know what's going to happen. All sorts of you never want to say never. But President Joe Biden has said that he would sign this bill, and I can only imagine that that's because he's in an election year and he wants to look tough on the I'm going to fight a trade war with China and I'm going to reassert U.S. dominance in the Pacific, and that this would only help his re-election chances. So it's just a confluence of really bad faith arguments that really have nothing to do with liberating the consumer, liberating the media consumer
at all. I mean, well, there are 8 billion people on the planet. Why is the American market so important?
Well, I think there is just a belief that the United States is, it's still number one in terms of GDP and sort of hegemonic power and economic power globally, but that the People's Republic of China is growing. I mean, that's just an observation. It's not a rah-rah statement. It's just to show that it's got the Belt and Road Initiative. Its economy is extremely large. It's forming all sorts of economic partnerships in the global South, especially in Africa, and so there's this fear that, the U.S. is going to lose its dominance to China, and we better do something about it, rather than, what sort of the regular person might say is, well, why don't we just coexist? I mean, the fact of the matter is we live in a global economy. We're not going back to the days of closed borders and, zero trade. So why not just face it and embrace it? And the more the merrier. I mean, the fact of the matter is that most consumer products that we use, whether they're media products or not media products, are either, if they're not publicly owned, they're parts of multinational conglomerates. So the idea of something being purely American is just, it's sort of a myth that's kind of perpetuated that, we should just buy American or make things in America. I mean, all things have some sort of national level of in terms of how it interacts with the global market. And so with media, it's the same way. I mean, TikTok's owned by China, but how many investors from all over the world are invested in Meta and in all these social media companies and all sorts of software companies and big tech. So it really is just demagoguery, I think, about this sort of fear that China is going to overtake the United States, that it's going to someday invade Taiwan, or that it is somehow imposing its way of life onto the United States, which is sort of it's sort of a hypocritical statement when you think about the degree to which American hegemonic power expresses itself all over the world. But I don't think there's anything special about the American market. I think this is just a sort of very ugly iteration of anti-communist, xenophobic, McCarthyized fervor that we should, yes, it's Republicans, but it's at least 150 Democrats voted for this. At least one Democrat, was the chief co-sponsor. And interestingly enough, Donald Trump has turned around on it. He said, "Oh no, you don't want to go, censoring, banning these companies, and frankly, it's just going to help Facebook, which is the enemy of the people. And whether or not Facebook is the enemy of the people is probably a hyperbolic statement. But he is correct that at least a lot of the mainstream press reports about this is that, of course, Meta has been benefiting from this. They saw a stock boost as soon as this thing passed. They don't want to see TikTok empowered for nothing more than keeping the semi-monopoly in the U.S. market.
But let's look at Donald Trump for a minute, because in many respects, look, this present iteration of Donald Trump is responding to the zeitgeist, as he always has, quite frankly. And I think we have to kind of step back and look at him, take the 40,000-foot view. I mean, he's been a Democrat, he's been a libertarian, he's been Ross Perot, he's been aligned with Ross Perot. He's a pragmatist, and he is a businessman. And businessmen tend to be agnostic politically. I heard Roger Stone in an interview, one of his close associates, say when it became evident to him that Donald Trump was serious about running for president. And after he made the statement on CNN, Ari Paul, I never saw him on CNN anymore. I said, I think he might have gotten a little too close to the truth. He said, you know what, Donald? He said, Mr. Trump, because he always referred to him addressed him as Mr. Trump. He said, if you come into this, be careful, because you could win the whole thing. He said, because you're not a Republican, you're not a Democrat, you could get white votes, black votes, you could actually grow, you could develop another party, or you could grow any party that you run with, because you run with everybody. I mean, he's a pragmatist, he's a businessman. And after that, we just didn't see Roger Stone anymore. He said, my profound disappointment in him is that, and remember, he started running when you had Bernie, who had all the progressives. And then you had Hillary Clinton, who had the traditional Republicans. And the Republicans were just trying to figure it out, because they didn't want Jeb. I mean, he's a nice guy, but they didn't want him. They didn't want Marco Rubio. He just came in and said, okay, I'll take the low-hanging fruit. And that's the nationalist fruit. It's the xenophobic fruit. It's all of that. I'm not making excuses for him. I'm just trying to look, Ari Paul, at what I'm looking at. And so I'm not surprised that he would do a switch up, change up on this, because I think he's looking at business. This is someone who's like, I don't care. I'm into the art of the deal. Because I do believe that he has a clarity that America, it's no longer a unipolar world. It's not, we have to, what did you say? Face it, embrace it. We've got to interact with everybody. I mean, there are more than 1 billion Indians, for heaven's sake. Then you've got Africa, it's 1 billion of them. And the next century will be the century of the African. I mean, the whole world is changing. And I'm just wondering, what is the political blowback on us for doing something like this? Because I'm sure that there is some, Ari Paul.
Yeah, I mean, part of it obviously,
globally, right? I mean, or you think I'm just...
No, I mean, I think a lot of people, myself included, are very, very concerned about the sort of hyperbolic scaremongering about China. I mean, I sometime last year there was that big fuss about the weather balloon, or whatever kind of Chinese balloon it was, and that we had to deploy fighter jets to shoot it down, and everyone was talking about this balloon, and it's, and then we had around the same time an Air Force general told, made an offhand comment like, oh, you better be ready to fight a war with China, and all the next thing you see headlines all over the United States saying like Major General threatens war with China, and it's like no one wants to go here. And yet it is, you said Donald Trump is a businessman. We also have to remember he's a showman. He once said himself, the show is Trump and the stage is everywhere. And so to just drum all this up, I mean, people like it. It's exciting. It hits their nerves in a very infotainment kind of way, despite the fact that the message being put in there is extremely pernicious. That, oh, you better be ready for a war with China. I think the other part of that blowback, and one thing that I'm extremely worried about, is whenever there are sort of very, tensions with a foreign power, foreign nation, is how this is going to affect Chinese Americans and Asian Americans. I mean, during, during 9/11, or right in the aftermath of 9/11, there was a lot of very grave concern about attacks on Arabs and Muslim Americans. People are fearing it again, as there is now, an assault on Gaza by the Israeli military, and that all of this drumming up of there's all this Chinese government influence all over the country, all over the United States through TikTok and our social media and what's on the internet. Is really, it truly could have, inspire acts of bigotry, things I don't even want to think about that could happen to the Chinese and Asian community. And I say the Asian community because there've always been. Vincent Chen is of course the Chin. I'm sorry, I mispronounced that. The famous case of a Chinese American man who was assaulted because he was misidentified as a Japanese person who was stealing jobs from auto workers. All of this happens. This of course happened in 9/11, where you had Sikhs and Hindus being targeted because they were the bigot got the wrong address or they got the wrong person. That's why these types of bigotry actually affect everyone, because the violence just metastasizes and it affects everyone. So I really do truly fear that so much of this fervor, part of that fear is external, that it creates this, economic problems with China and diplomatic problems with China that just shouldn't happen, and that we should be cooperating with the large nations of the world, and really just deal with them, have normalized relations, but it also affects the home front. I think the people who are beating that drum either don't know or don't care, or know, and they want that. They want to drum up this fervor because there is just a lot of anti-Chinese animus in this, this I don't even want to call it populist, but this far right, aspect of the Republican Party.
Well, but the Democrats are participating in it too. And
I was about to say that. Yeah.
It seems like it's this corporatist push. And it's not even to help America. It's not helping us. I think, we both have a lot of international experience. And when you leave the United States, you see the world. And this is not a good look for us as the world is reorganizing. The people who were formerly colonized are now, they're emerging as the leaders of the new world. We heard everybody talking about a new world order for the past 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. I don't think they imagined what this new world order would look like. It's different. And when you are picking on this country of color, yes, I'm going there, it is racist, because we don't go after Europeans this way. And I'm just wondering, where is all of this going? Because now, because it seems like the House has caught the U.S. Senate flat-footed, because they don't even have a correlative bill. They're like, okay, so what are we supposed to do with this? They got to do something because the House passed this. They passed this. So, so what's next?
Yeah, I think you sort of hit the nail on the head when you said, that picking on this country of color. It should really not be forgotten that the first anti-immigration laws in this country were specifically designated towards the Chinese. That the Page Act and the Chinese Exclusion Act were all built around these ideas of the wily, deceitful Chinese person who's going to come and play a game on you. And there was sort of an over-sexualization of Chinese women, and this idea that they were coming for you specifically, and that sort of led the sort of a set of immigration laws that governed this country until the mid-'60s. So that, where's all this going? Unfortunately, we've seen it before. It's, I say it's anti-communist fervor, and yes, it is. It's sort of, they see the hammer and sickle, the red flag of China, and people's, Cold War brain just goes off and thinks, well, we're Americans, we have to fight this. But it has always been this driving factor in America's really bloody and shameful history all throughout Asia, whether it's been China, the dropping of the atomic bomb on Japan twice, the wars in Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, the colonization of the Philippines. I mean, the support for the Indo-Chinese or the Indonesian genocide in Timor, all of this. I mean, the list is almost too long to go through. That is rooted in not just anti-communism, but in hatred and fear of Asian people, and it can it plays out in foreign policy, but it also metastasizes at home.
Absolutely.
I deeply fear that this fervor of which this TikTok bill is a part of is only going to feed that. I hope I'm wrong, but I think history is what keeps people like me and many others sort of awake at night, so to speak.
Well, as if our discomfort with these people is going to hold them back. It's not. They're going to continue forward. They're going to continue to grow. Their economy is growing. It is not contracting. It's expanding. They share a border with Russia. Many of us don't. All we see is the Kremlin when you see pictures of Moscow. The fact is, it's a very modern city with a lot of very comfortable people. I mean, the world, I think I just fear, I not fear, I don't fear. It makes me sad that Americans have such a limited and distorted view of the world. And I think we're seeing it in this fight, this fear of TikTok, which most Americans do not have. They want their TikTok. Look, I don't really, like I said, but most Americans don't understand what's going on here. So tell me, in this last minute, what do you want us to know? What should we be looking out for? And what is next?
I would say that people should call well, it's too late to call your House representative, but if you can, call your senator, say that you're very concerned about this bill, that it would, undermine freedom of speech, is a part of a Cold War fervor that, we really shouldn't, interject at this time. We should be looking more at paths that seek normalization with China, that seek real diplomatic cooperation with China, with all nations, but in this iteration, China, and that this is really just ratcheting up tensions at a time where we shouldn't be, and that it really threatens freedom of speech, freedom of the internet. These are things that we shouldn't be doing. I think for the idea of, well, what about spyware? What about misinformation? I mean, these are enormous questions that we as a society are going to have to answer about the entirety of the internet, the entirety of the information age. And simply banning this or that website is not going to answer it. We have to have long conversations about, should we turn social media into public utilities? We need to talk, should we go the Senator Liz Warren path and talk about breaking up these social media companies and that they constitute a monopoly, and that they just shouldn't be for profit altogether, whether they're Chinese or American. Those are the questions that we're going to have to be asking, not ban that particular app.
It's not going to work. But face it, embrace it. I'm taking that from you today.
Thank you.
Well, blessings to you. Please come back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Stay tuned for the second hour of the Santita Jackson Show. Let's talk about what's happening in election 2024. Are you going to have to go back for another one of those conversations too? Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait to hear what you've got to say. Back in just a minute. AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota.